What is up, everybody? Happy Friday to you. This is the Undefeated post-weigh-in show. I'm Clint from the Die Hard MMA Podcast, and this is Pub Sports Radio. Make sure you smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and leave me a comment section down below who you think will shit the bed at UFC Vegas 34. We are talking the last opportunity to see these fighters before they step into the cage. We're looking for every single little tiny detail that might give us an edge on a bet that could put some extra cash in your pocket. So let's take one last run through this lineup and see how everybody looked today. And then, of course, we go over the face-offs as well. First fight of the night, Sasha Palatnikov taking on Ramiz Brahimaj. Sasha came in at 170, Brahimaj 171. You do get that 1 pound allowance, totally fine. Sasha came in and he looked in great shape. He was stoic on the scale, almost fell off the stage when he was trying to get his flip-flop on. That was pretty funny. Not a balance issue, not something I'm concerned with a weight cut, just hilarious, had to mention it. Ramiz Brahimaj came in and he was jacked. He gave a huge flex, and honestly, it's the best shape I've ever seen him in. I know we haven't seen Ramiz a ton in the UFC so far, but he looks like he took this camp extremely seriously. Now, when they faced off, there's a decent size advantage for Sasha Palatnikov. This is something that I was caught a little off guard by. I thought these guys were going to be kind of eye-to-eye, toe-to-toe. I didn't realize Sasha was going to be so much bigger than Ramiz. Now, the one thing that helps us with is I am fully expecting Ramiz Brahimaj to grapple in this fight. So whenever you're the shorter man, you do have a tendency to be able to get in on the hips easier of your opponent. So it's not like a fire sale, buy out of it, hedge the other way like that. I'm not like freaking out about this one. I definitely still like the Sasha Brahimaj side of, or the Ramiz Brahimaj side of things. And I do expect that he's probably going to sync up some kind of a submission early on in this fight, especially if he chooses to force scrambles, go for that grappling, get in on the takedowns. But I would be lying to you if I said that the size advantage of Sasha is not a little bit concerning for me here in this spot. Next fight up, Roosevelt Roberts came in at 154.5. Ignacio Bahamondes made 154 on the dot. Both them coming in under the 155 limit, which is a little surprising. Nothing to report from Roosevelt Roberts. He looked good, business as usual for him. Ignacio Bahamondes came in skinny, but with a 12-pack. This man's abs are something to behold. He looked great. He gave the double thumbs up. Both these guys really are ready to go. When they faced off, another slightly surprising thing to me was size advantage Roosevelt Roberts. I thought that Ignacio Bahamondes was going to be the slightly larger fighter here in this spot. And a lot of what I said when I broke this fight down with Locke on Monday was that I expected Ignacio Bahamondes to be the bigger fighter, and I didn't know if Roosevelt Roberts was going to be quite as successful as some people expect him to be in the grappling realm, because I thought he was going to be at a size disadvantage here in this spot. Turns out, it's the opposite. If anything, these guys are the same size, with Roosevelt Roberts being just a little bit bigger. So if he does have a strength advantage here in this spot, that grappling is completely on the table, and it kind of makes me rethink what I was talking about before. I had a slight lean to Roosevelt Roberts. I think Ignacio Bahamondes is the better striker, but I think Roberts is miles away the better grappler. So if he manages to get this thing to the ground, Ignacio could be in some serious trouble. Intense stare down. This was a good face-off. Both these guys are really ready to fight, so this one's going to be solid. I can't wait for this fight. Honestly, this whole card turned out to be pretty fantastic. Next up, we got the big boys. William Knight coming in here, taking on Fabio Cherant. Knight came in at 206. Fabio came in at 205. And William Knight is the brickest of brick shit houses. Like, holy crap, dude. We have talked about this guy. Every time he gets on the scale, we talk about the ridiculous amount of muscle that he has. But somehow he pushed it even harder this time. Like, every single muscle on his body looks like you took one of those little plugs from like a basketball pump and stuck it in him. Like, he is huge for this fight. He took this extremely seriously. Now, Fabio Cherant came in and he was wearing sunglasses. You don't wear sunglasses at the weigh-ins, damn it. He was wearing the sunglasses. It always makes me suspicious. But he looked great. Honestly, he looked in much better shape than we usually see him in. And that says something. He's a guy that's got a habit of missing weight at the face-offs. Even at the regional scene, he had a problem making weight lots of times. So I was kind of hoping he would miss weight for this one as well, but he looks like he took this fight seriously. I think he knows he needs a win here. He knows he's on the chopping block. The problem is, I don't know if just coming in shape is going to be a good enough thing for him to actually get the win here on Saturday. Knight built like a truck. Fabio was intense at the face-off. this was good. I can't wait to see this fight. And the big thing that really surprised me is that Fabio is just not that much bigger than Knight. What we've seen with William Knight at 205 is he is massively outsized sometimes. He's short, he's stocky, he's broad, and most of his opponents are much taller and much longer than he is, and I kind of thought Fabio Cherant was going to be the same way. He's a little bit bigger. He's not a lot bigger, he's just ever so slightly bigger. So I do still side with William Knight here. I do still think William Knight's going to be able to get those takedowns because Fabio has no takedown defense and hasn't had enough time off between fights to really shore up that takedown defense. I do think that Fabio Cherant may have an improved gas tank. That was something I was kind of concerned from his side of things. I thought William Knight would be able to tire him out, wear him down, ground and pound him. I still kind of think that happens, but I'm leaning deeper in the fight now. I kind of think that's maybe a round 3 thing, or maybe a William Knight by decision via takedowns type of situation now, more than just, William Knight round 2 pounding this guy's face in. Next fight up, we've got Bea Malecki, Josiane Nunes. Bea Malecki came in at 135, Nunes 136. Bea looked good on the scales, no real issues except she's a giraffe. Josiane Nunes, unimpressive. Redonkulously unimpressive on the scales. You cannot tell a thing about this woman based off of her visual appearance. No issues, though. Made weight easily, it looks like. And Bea looks like she's 2 weight classes bigger than Josiane Nunes. When these two faced off and stood side by side, you're seeing the pictures circulate on Twitter already because these two do not look like they're the same size or the same weight whatsoever. Now, this is a spot that I'm definitely, I can't help myself. I really have this feeling that Josiane Nunes is going to put up a fight. She's got a massive speed advantage here in this fight, and we've seen Bea Malecki be slow and struggle with people exploding and getting in the pocket, and that's exactly what Nunes looks to do. I think she's going to go to work with the hands, even though she's at a significant size disadvantage. She hits like a truck for the weight class. I kind of am tempted to sprinkle Nunes by knockout. I'm not going to lie. But I'm not planning on doing much with this fight beyond that. So staying away for the most part. Nothing for either of these women surprised me at the weigh-ins. Just the size difference is staggering, but we knew that was coming. Brian Kelleher taking on Domingo Pilarte. Both guys made 136. Brian gave a big flex. He looks solid. He did go to rehydrate immediately after he got off the scales. It's his first weight cut down to 135 in a bit. It was a little bit rough on the guy. His opponent, Domingo Pilarte, absolutely shredded. This guy looked fantastic. No issues for him. Significant height advantage for Domingo Pilarte. This was a respectful face-off. Both guys look like they're amped up and they're ready to go. I'm on the Brian Kelleher train. You all know that. I love the guy. He's a friend of the show. But one thing that concerns me is Domingo Pilarte taking a long layoff. He's a younger fighter who potentially can make some improvements, and that size advantage is going to be a serious problem. Again, this is nothing different from what we saw on Monday. We knew this was the case. We knew he was going to be taller. We knew he was going to be longer. I'm just starting to get a little bit of cold feet. I already told you guys that I'm not betting on Brian Kelleher in this spot simply because I know I'm a fanboy. I know I've got an emotional attachment and a bias to it, so I cannot take him, and especially, I just don't like this price. It's weird to me that the entire world is on Brian Kelleher when he's a guy that almost every predictor and UFC bettor looks to fade. Nobody backs Brian Kelleher. They haven't. And then all of a sudden, everyone's jumping on the ship at a chalky price tag for this particular fight. I just have alarm bells going off. I'm not sure what's going on. And I think some of the lines are out of order. I may be making a unofficial sprinkle. Obviously, I can't tweet this for anybody or anything like that because, relationships. But the numbers for Domingo Pilarte by knockout is plus 850 or some shit. It's ridiculous how wide these lines are because everybody's counting Domingo out, and that just scares me. I'm rooting with my heart and soul for my guy Brian Kelleher to get the win, and plus 115, plus 120 for him to win inside the distance, and then minus 175 chalk. It's just not enough for me. It doesn't sound good to me. So I'm going to be passing on that fight for the most part. Austin Lingo taking on Luis Saldana. Lingo came in at 145.5, Saldana 146. Austin Lingo came in, and honestly, he looked a bit soft. If you remember the last couple fights, we've talked about how good this guy looks, how solid he is. He hits really hard. He's strong for the weight class. there were no real issues, but there wasn't the level of definition I'm kind of used to seeing. And again, that's me being a little bit over the top when it comes to the analysis here. But he did strike me as being a little softer than we've seen him in the past. Luis Saldana came in, very quick weigh-in. He was on and off the scales immediately, but that wasn't a bad thing. He gave a solid flex. He looked intense. He's in incredible shape. He looks fantastic for this one. These guys size up really, really well. And this was a really good face-off. This was another one where both these guys are chomping at the bit, ready to go. I'm heavy on the Luis Saldana side on this particular fight. Not seeing anything at the weigh-ins that's going to scare me off on that. Alexandre Pantoja taking on Brandon Royval. 126 for Pantoja, 125.5 for my guy Royval. Alexandre Pantoja, incredible shape as always. Absolutely shredded. This guy was first to the scales. He's a professional. He's a championship caliber fighter. We don't expect anything less from him. Brandon Royval came in. He's skinny jacked. He's tall, so he's got that slim thing going on. But he was confident. He's got that attitude. He's got that chip on his shoulder, and I love seeing that from this kind of a guy. Both guys were smiling and having fun at the weigh-ins, at the face-offs. So you could absolutely tell that there's no hard feelings or anything like that here. But both guys are confident in their own skill set. Both guys think they're going to win this fight. Royval obviously taller and longer. We knew that was the case. This is another one where absolutely nothing has changed based on the weigh-ins. Neither guy struggled. Neither guy has an edge over the other. It's just going to be a damn good fight. I am on Brandon Royval as an underdog here, and I like that spot, but obviously for a smaller bet because fading Pantoja just generally long-term doesn't really work out all that well. Vinc Pichel taking on Austin Hubbard. Vinc Pichel came in at 155.5. Austin Hubbard came in at 156. Pichel absolutely jacked. The man looks amazing. I listened to an interview with him, and apparently for this fight camp, he was lifting weights for the first time. What? Like, you're telling me that this man, with the physique that he's got, with the size and the strength advantage he's had over most of his opponents, has never done weight training before? He's going to be a monster in there on Saturday. Like, getting some extra muscle on him, not something I expected to hear. He's going to be incredibly strong in the cage on Saturday. Austin Hubbard came in, no issues. He gave a good flex. Honestly, he looked good, but nothing unusual. He always looks good. And when they faced off, Vinc Pichel has a size advantage. Guys, this is one of those spots where I stopped myself from betting Austin Hubbard earlier in the week because it just seemed like an auto click. It seemed like it was too easy. The younger fighter, the guy that I'm a fan of, that I think has a bright future in the sport, he's a pick'em price tag against Vinc Pichel, a dude that's getting older, who's been around a long time. It seems like a passing of the torch spot. But the more, first off, I stopped myself. I did not make that bet. And the more I look into it, the more I realize that Vinc Pichel is more well-rounded. He doesn't have a ton of miles on his body, so even though he's a little bit older, it's not the normal fight years older situation. He's going to be good to go here. He's got a size advantage. He's got a strength advantage. He has a ground game advantage, and those are all the things that Austin Hubbard has struggled with in the past. And Austin Hubbard is a guy that turns it up late when his opponents die off. Vinc Pichel doesn't have gas tank issues. He's not going to be dying off later in the fight. And he's also a guy that you simply do not finish. So I'm not expecting Austin Hubbard to have a come-from-behind knockout in the third round in this spot. I've made that bet several times already, but I can't do it this week, obviously, because of his opponent. If anything, I'm looking more towards betting Vinc Pichel. The more I see here, the more I realize that I think Vince might actually be the right side, especially with that size and strength advantage in this spot. Those are the types of things that Austin Hubbard is going to struggle with. Austin gives up takedowns, and Vince is such a heavy top game guy. He's a position over submission guy. He's going to stay on top of you and be heavy, so that's going to make it super hard for a kid like Austin Hubbard to get out from under him because Vince is not going to slip off looking for a choke or a submission or anything like that. So anytime I've gone from wanting to bet one fighter to wanting to bet the other fighter, I've decided to make that a pass rather than making it a bet because a lot of times my gut instinct, the first instinct, is the correct one, and then I end up costing myself money. So I'm staring very hard at this because I've gone from wanting to back Austin Hubbard to wanting to back Vinc Pichel. And at this point, I have not locked in a bet. I've not made a move. I'm not sure what I'm going to do. But I'm looking far more at the Vinc Pichel side of things than I am the Austin Hubbard side of things. Next up, Trevin Jones taking on Saidyokub. Kakhramonov. Trevin Jones came in at 135. Kakhramonov is one of the misses of the day. He came in at 138.5. And several of us actually talked about this earlier in the week, that this is a guy that's got a history of missing weight. He's missed weight several times before in his career, and coming in on short notice, we kind of had a feeling he was going to come in and miss. Now, Trevin Jones, stone cold, absolutely jacked on the scale, laser focused, this guy. Y'all know I'm a Trevin Jones guy. I love this kid. I think he's got a bright future in MMA. But I did hear an interview with him, and he talked about how he has stayed on fight weight for 3 different fights this month. He's been trying to get on a fight card for this entire month, and he's made weight 3 times. That type of repeat cutting can be a serious problem, because these guys are drained, they're tired, they're exhausted, they never get a chance to refill or reload. He has kept himself down at fight weight for an entire month, and that is a red flag to me. He looked fantastic on the scales. He didn't look like he wasn't moving well. He spoke well. He wasn't like slurring or had any problems or anything, being cranky at the interviews. So I think he's okay, but that has to be said, that that's something that definitely is scaring me a little bit when it comes to backing Trevin Jones here in this spot. Now, his opponent came in on short notice, misses weight, we know that, and he went into the back and immediately started chugging. I've talked about this before, where there's obviously everybody rehydrates after they cut weight, but there's a difference between the people who walk off the stage and they're fine versus the people that sprint to their water bottle and start slamming to rehydrate as quickly as possible. He goes in the latter category. He absolutely was desperately rehydrating in this spot, and he missed weight. Those two things have me concerned for this guy's gas tank, which is a positive for Trevin Jones. Now, I did my tape study. Before, I couldn't give you an opinion on this one because I had no idea what this guy looked like. This guy is vicious in the first round. He's a first-round fighter. He's got a massive right hand, which he knocked out Askar Askarov, which if anybody... I'm sorry, Askar. Askar is a big-time prospect on the scene. We're expecting big things from that guy. And this dude knocked him out in the very first round. That right hand is no joke. We have seen Trevin Jones rocked. We have seen Trevin Jones hurt. And with this being the 3rd or 4th opponent switch that he's had coming up to this fight camp, I don't know how ready for this guy Trevin Jones is going to be. So if he comes out guns blazing first round looking for the kill because he's short notice, because he has a bad gas tank, because he missed weight, he can absolutely kill Trevin Jones in that first round. But he fades off, and he fades off hard. We've seen him get finished if the fight gets extended multiple times, and I think that's exactly what Trevin Jones is going to need to do. Weather that first storm, and then if he can get this thing into the 2nd or the 3rd round, he's just going to be able to take over. He'll be able to do whatever he wants to do, because this kid gets sloppy when he gets tired. So I'm looking at Trevin Jones round 2, round 3, Trevin Jones inside the distance, and then if you want to, you can hedge that with Said round 1 by knockout, because he's not winning any other way. He's going to knock Trevin Jones out early, or it's not going to happen. So the other thing I'm looking at is potentially just laying a hammer on the under. Right now, I don't have access to it. I think I've got a 1.5, and it's plus 125 or something like that. I don't hate that, because I do think this thing's going to end relatively early, but I think Trevin Jones has the chance to end it late if he wants to play it smart, if he wants to extend it. But I would be looking to play fight doesn't go the distance at like a minus 200 if they give it to me. It's chalky, I know, but that would be a smash spot for me, because I absolutely don't see this fight making it 3 rounds the way these two guys go to war. Parker Porter taking on Chase Sherman. Parker Porter came in at 262. Sherman came in at 265. Parker gave a huge flex. This dude is one of the most awkward body types I've ever seen, but he's starting to transform. You can see he's taking it seriously. He is losing the flab. He is gaining the muscle. He's getting, it looks like he's super flabby, but that's where he's lost the fat, and then he's still just got the skin on his body. So trust me, he looks better than he has looked previously. Chase Sherman, he looked a bit soft also, which was something that is a bit concerning for someone who took Chase Sherman by knockout. What I also have here is the under 2.5. Because if Chase Sherman doesn't finish early, I do think Parker is the kind of guy that will pressure him until he breaks, and then he'll be able to get the finish late. So I think it's going to be round 1 Chase, round 2, round 3 Porter, something along those lines. I know a lot of people are banking on this thing to go to the decision, but I just don't see that happening. Chase Sherman is broken in a lot of fights against opponents that are a lot slower paced, that just don't look to push the pace. Parker pushes a freaking pace. Like, if he gets you hurt, he will go for that kill, and Chase Sherman will break. So I don't think this fight is going to the judges' scorecards personally. It was a good stare down. Both guys are absolutely ready to go. My heart will be cheering for Parker Porter, but my wallet will be cheering for Chase Sherman. Co-main event time, Clay Guida taking on Marco Madsen. Clay Guida came in at 155, Madsen 156. Now Guida, he sprinted to the stage with an American flag. This man is amped up before getting on the scale. He was flexing before they called his weight. He is ready to rock, screaming, pounding his chest. He's an animal. I love Clay Guida. I'm happy to see him in the kind of shape that he's in because we might get a few more years of this caveman. He's fantastic. Marco Madsen came in, and he is fight-ready jacked, and I mean that when I say fight-ready jacked because he looks like he's in the best shape of his life. These guys had a great face-off. Both dudes are in excellent shape. I got to be honest, I think this is the best shape I've ever seen Clay Guida in, too. He knows what's in front of him for this fight. He took this extremely seriously. I did some extra fight study last night on this one because I'm very, very interested in this fight. And Clay Guida's pace just blew me away. The way this guy never stops. I think Mark Madsen is the better wrestler. I think he's going to be the stronger individual. But again, it's concerning that he falls off in the second and third round. Someone like Clay will be able to take advantage of that. But Mark being in the kind of shape that he's in, working with Fight Ready, you got to wonder if he's going to have some more gas in the tank before the end of this fight. What I'm really tempted on is going to be Mark Madsen by submission because you can get that at like 5-1, 6-1 out there right now. Clay Guida's got a history of leaving that neck out, and I do think with the type of squeeze that Mark Madsen is capable of, that's something he can absolutely catch because Clay Guida doesn't shy away from the wrestling exchanges. He'll absolutely try to double leg an Olympian. You can count on Clay being more than willing to pull that. Main event time. This is where it all gets crazy. Jared Cannonier came in at 185. Kelvin Gastelum came in at 186. Jared Cannonier, holy hell, this man is shredded. Now, we have talked about this multiple times, the fact that this man is a heavyweight now walking around at 185 and has one of the most ridiculous physiques we've ever seen in MMA today. But he's still somehow managed to one-up that. He's always been in excellent shape, but today, damn. Like, his veins were popping from every spot. He is 0% body fat. I've never seen him in this kind of shape, and that's saying something because he always is in incredible shape. So he is ready to rock here. Kelvin Gastelum, can't believe this, but he came in and needed the box of shame. He weighed in at 186 and a quarter pound. He missed weight on his first attempt. He was last to the scale, made us all wait a long-ass time, and then he had the audacity to flex after he missed weight, which just classic Kelvin Gastelum at this point. But he was fine. That's the thing. Like, he didn't look like he was sweating. He didn't look like he just got off the treadmill or out of the sauna. Like, he looked like he just rolled out of bed late and tried to make weight, and it didn't go his way. He did have an hour to make the weight cut. He did get that quarter pound off, and he made weight at 186. It just is ridiculous. Kelvin Gastelum at this point with the weight stuff is just ridiculous. But I'm not worried about him. In fact, I think he tried to cheat a little bit as far as his durability, his gas tank, his energy goes. He really didn't struggle to get himself down to 185. He didn't really even bother trying if the first weight attempt was any type of a sign of what this guy does. Big size difference. This is another one where it's a massive size difference between Jared Cannonier and Kelvin Gastelum. This was a respectful face-off. Both guys look like they're amped up. They're ready to go. They're excited. This is going to be a fun fight. What I've done is taken the alternate lines of over 2.5 and over 3.5. I do still lean towards Jared Cannonier. I think the size, I think the strength is going to be a serious issue, but I do think that we can rely on the durability of both of these men. We've never seen Jared in this good of shape, so obviously there's the chance that he could crack Kelvin and maybe Kelvin's chin finally gives out, but that has yet to happen. I think if it's going to happen, it's not necessarily going to happen early because he's going to have the speed advantage. He'll be able to avoid some of those big power shots and stuff, and especially if they get into the grappling, if he slows Jared down in any way, shape, or form with the grappling, gasses him out a little bit, this fight will extend. I do think this one's going long. I do think this one's going to the championship rounds. Maybe somebody gets clipped late in the fight, which is why I didn't play the over 4.5 or the fight goes to decision, but I did lay the chalk on the over 2.5 and the over 3.5s. That's the reads, folks. There is your post weigh-in recap. Here we are, always undefeated. There were some sketchy spots here on this card. Be very careful. This is another one of those crazy events where a lot of things can happen. A lot of people are being counted out, and I don't necessarily think that they should be. These are very closely lined fights, and a lot of these fighters could show up and surprise some people, so tread extremely lightly. Good luck on all of your degenerate action. I will see you tomorrow. Let's roll.